Hi and welcome to this week's assembly on British Science Week. There are two themes for British Science Week. First is innovating the future. Second is diversity. So, innovating the future. What is an innovation? An innovation is a new method, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing something. It's ever so slightly different to an invention, which is an object or a thing that has never been made before. So it's ever so slightly different to those. Let's think of some inventions that have changed the world. We all have had in our lives and we use pretty much every day. So the first is a television. A television was invented in the 1920s, in 1924, and they went on sale later that decade. They were in black and white, and the first ones couldn't send moving pictures, so instead they used ventriloquist dummies to send pictures of people, which is a little bit scary. A car, something I own one. I use it to get to school. I use it to come to work. I go to the shops in it. It's something that was invented in 1885. The first car maximum speed was 6 miles an hour, so that definitely was more of a statement than it was of a necessity. But they've been becoming better and better and better over the time, and now they're something we all can't live without. Another thing we can't live without, mobile phones. Made a bit more recently, 1973, at the company Motorola. There are still Motorola phones around there at the minute, so it's still a company that's very much in the mobile phone game. The first one weighed 1.1 kilograms, which is about two loaves of bread, so it's quite heavy. Phone is definitely a brick, and it's something now we think we can't live without. We wouldn't be without our mobile phones. Not all inventions need to be something worked on as a team, like a group like Motorola. An example is the guy who came up with Velcro. He was walking through a meadow through the countryside one day, and he noticed those sticky seeds that stick to all your clothes. And he looked at the way they worked, and that helped him to come up with the idea of Velcro. Now, thousands of other people will have seen those sticky seeds, will have walked past them every day, will have not paid a second thought. But he saw them, and he saw them as something he could make into or innovate a new method of thinking, a new way of creating two objects that stick together and can be used as a fastening. Working as a team, though, can get us a long way. An example of something that's had teams working on it for a very long time are computers. The first computers were abacuses made 5,000 years ago. And since then, they've been developed into early computers, and we now have them in our mobile phones. We have these kind of smartphones which fit into our hands. This has been a massive team effort over thousands of years to go from an abacus to a computer. The first supercomputer, programmable computer, was called Z1, and that was done in 1936, and it took up and will have taken up a massive room. Most of the early computers take up a massive amount of space, whereas our mobile phones can fit into our hands now. That's just so amazing. So let's think about what we've had in the last 100 years. Okay, so from 1920 all the way up to today. Well, Birdseye came up with how to make frozen peas, and that's why Birdseye is such a brand with frozen food. He was the guy who came up with the idea of quick freezing method for food. So that's where the name Birdseye comes from. We also have quite an important one. Alexander Fleming discovered antibiotics. Okay, he came up with penicillin, and that has saved thousands of lives, knowing that these antibiotics will kill off the bacteria that cause infections. We've got the first biro, okay, something you probably all got in your bag. You use it every day at school, hopefully, as a biro pen, and this was first invented in 1938. Before that, it was all fountain pens and ink pens like that. So it allowed mass producing of these pens, made it more accessible to everybody. 1972, a scientist came up with the idea of Kevlar, so bulletproof vests and material that goes into bulletproof vests, and that made policing a lot safer. We also have the World Wide Web, created in 1989, something we use every day, we use it all the time, and that was only created in 1989. And 2011, we get the first virtual assistant, Siri. Where are these inventions going to be in the next 100 years? Okay, is one of your names going to be up there with an idea that you've come up with that nobody else has thought of yet? Well, what do you need to be if you think you could be an inventor? What skills, what skill sets? Well, you need to be curious. You need to think about how the world works and how the way items work and what they do and how they tie together. You need to have perseverance and resilience. You need to, if your idea doesn't work first time, what can you do to make it better? How could you get there? What is it didn't work? How can you improve upon it? You need to have that keep going attitude. If you just give up, you'll never get there. And finally, you need patience. Lots of times with these inventions, you have to wait to see the effect they are having. Are they working? Are they doing what they need to do? You need to have that patience to go through. There are lots of other skills that you could think of as well. They were just the first three that I thought were really important. So an example is this Lonnie G. Johnson. He actually came up with something by mistake that you've probably all used. He was really curious when he was young. He used to take things apart. He looked at old junk and put together, and he actually made a walkie-talkie from it and all those kind of things. It wasn't until he grew up and became an engineer that he did what he was famous for, and that is invented a super soaker. And this was an accident in his bathroom. He was looking at a new pump in his bathroom at home. It shot a stream of water out, and from there he got the idea of making this really cool, fun toy that we've all hopefully played with and used all the time. So what are we doing in science this week? So one of the things we're doing is looking at a poster competition. Now, this is to be done in your time, and it's up to you, it's volunteer. But if you'd like to have a go at entering this competition, you can do. We can enter 5 posters from the school, and we will submit them to British Science Week, and there are prizes from British Science Week on a wall, up for grabs. But every entry in will have achievement points. The competition to British Science Week is only open from year 7 to year 9, but we would welcome any posters from any year groups. We just won't be able to enter them into British Science Week for those if you enter from a higher year. Your tutors should have the information that you can use. It's also in the newsletter if you'd like to have a look at entering that. The date for final entries is April the 23rd. You can give it to your science teacher or bring it to science staff room, and that's just to give us time to judge them and then get them entered into for British Science Week. So the other theme that we have for British Science Week is thinking about diversity in science. So we started off by asking some of our students what they think a scientist looks like.
I think a scientist is a person who wears a lab coat and has big poofy hair and looks like they've got ash on their face from a big explosion.
I think a scientist looks like your stereotypical mad scientist. So an older man with crazy hair, big goggles and a lab coat.
This looks like a crazy man with big puffy hair and weird.
Okay, so that's what our students think a scientist looks like.
I think a scientist...
So, but that's not... On the screen, you should hopefully be able to see there are 8 scientists there. None of them are wearing a lab coat. None of them have big poofy hair. Okay, none of them have ash on their face. It's not... Scientists don't always have to look like our typical Albert Einstein. They look very different. All of these people here are... famous for doing something in science, technology, engineering and maths. This one here, hopefully you kind of got a kind of hint about what she's wearing. She's got an astronaut's uniform on. She's actually the first American black female to go into space. And that's her, that's what she did. There are thousands I could show you pictures of, but these are just 8 that we're doing. And we're running a second competition, so there's 2 competitions. What you need to do for this one is there are posters going to be all around the science department. You need to find out those names. You need to find out who they are and find out what they have contributed to science. So their posters will be up. They'll probably be on science teachers' doors. There might be a couple inside science teachers' rooms. So you to go around, find those scientists, find out what they've added to science, technology, English and maths. And not English, engineering and maths. And once you've found that out, if you bring it to the science staff room, and every entry again will have an achievement points with it, and there'll be a prize. We'll pick one of them out of the hat, and there will be a prize for that one too. So hopefully that's got you a bit excited in British Science Week and how that works and what that means, and all the things that you might see going up and around in science this week. And hopefully you'll all have a little go at thinking about how you could make a new invention.